The wind cut across the open road like a warning. Delbert hadn't planned on taking Highway 16 that morning, but something pulled him that way. A habit maybe, or just that aching feeling in his chest that had followed him for years. The sky above was heavy, as if the world was holding its breath. His old black pickup hummed beneath him, steady, reliable. And then he saw her. A woman, alone on the shoulder, gripping a battered suitcase with one hand and her belly with the other. She looked lost, exhausted, and hauntingly familiar. He braked hard. She didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, staring. Her pale dress clung to her body, and the wind tossed her long brown hair across her face. Something in Delbert's gut twisted. He leaned across the seat and pushed the door open. "You all right?" he asked. No answer. Only a slow nod, and then she climbed in, wincing as she sat, one arm wrapped tightly around her belly. The truck door shut with a hollow thud that echoed in his chest. The silence inside was thick. They rode on for miles with no music, no small talk, just the sound of tires over cracked asphalt and the heater trying to fight the cold. He glanced at her, trying not to stare. She looked like someone from a dream or a past life, and yet so real, so close. Finally, his voice broke the quiet. "What's your name?" Her answer came after a long pause, like it hurt to say it. "Marlene." Delbert's hands stiffened on the wheel. 15 years. 15 years since Marlene Tucker vanished without a trace. He'd searched for her until his body gave out and his heart gave up. The woman he once loved, who disappeared from his life one rainy October night, was now sitting next to him. Pregnant. Pale. Fragile. "Marlene," he whispered, but she looked away. "I didn't expect you to recognize me," she said, barely louder than a breath. Her voice, it still carried that same soft ache. He pulled over, gravel crunching beneath the tires. "You disappeared. Everyone thought you were gone for good." She nodded slowly. "I had to leave, Delbert. I can't explain it here." His voice cracked, sharp from old wounds. "Is the baby mine?" Her answer came slow. "No. But you're the only one I knew would stop." Then her breath caught in her throat, her face contorted in sudden pain, and she clutched her stomach with both hands. "Delbert, something's wrong. It's happening now." Delbert knelt beside her on the cold asphalt, panic rising like a tide. Marlene's breath came in short, sharp gasps, her hands digging into the pavement as another wave of pain gripped her body. He hadn't seen her in 15 years, and now she was going into labor on the side of a deserted road. The absurdity of it almost knocked the air out of him. All right, hang on," he said, fumbling for his phone. "No signal." Of course. Out here, surrounded by nothing but empty fields and miles of isolation, there was no one but them. I can't do this here," Marlene cried, her voice cracking under the strain. Her eyes, full of fear and something deeper, something she still wasn't saying, met his. "Delbert, please." He looked around, heart pounding. There was a church a few miles back. Abandoned, but solid. He remembered helping fix the roof years ago. "Hold on," he said, standing quickly. "We're not staying here. I know a place. Just breathe through it, all right?" He helped her up gently, her entire body trembling against his. He drove fast, gravel flying behind them, tires barely holding to the wet road. Marlene groaned with every bump, clutching the door with white knuckles. The sky above grew darker by the minute, the first rumbles of thunder murmuring in the distance. "It's coming fast," she said through clenched teeth. He didn't know if she meant the baby or the storm, or both. Delbert gritted his teeth and pushed the gas. Every second felt like a countdown to something he wasn't ready for. They reached the church just as the rain began to fall. The wooden structure stood like a forgotten monument, windows boarded, the bell tower missing its bell. Delbert helped her out of the truck and through the creaking doors, the wind screaming behind them as if trying to follow them inside. Dust and old pews greeted them. He laid her down on an old bench near the altar, tossing his jacket beneath her head. She was shaking, sweat already on her forehead. "I never thought I'd see you again," she whispered. Delbert swallowed hard, kneeling beside her. "I didn't stop looking for years. Then I had to let go." She gripped his hand tightly, eyes burning. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," she said, her voice trembling. "Someone made me disappear. A violent contraction cut her off, and she screamed, her nails digging into his skin. "We don't have time," he said, voice rising. "Marlene, who did this to you?" But she didn't answer. She couldn't. Her body arched in pain, and just as lightning split the sky outside, she cried out again. Only this time, it wasn't just from the labor. It was something else. Fear. The storm slammed against the church walls like fists of rage. Rain battered the windows, and thunder cracked so loud the pews seemed to shake. Delbert knelt beside Marlene, his hands trembling as he tried to help her breathe through the pain. She was fading in and out, soaked in sweat, her dress clinging to her skin. "Stay with me," he begged, brushing the wet hair from her face. "We're gonna get through this. Just stay awake." Her lips parted. For a moment, he thought she was slipping into unconsciousness. But then she looked at him, really looked, and whispered a name. "Walter." It came out like poison, like something she hadn't dared say in years. Delbert's stomach twisted. "Who the hell is Walter?" he asked, but she closed her eyes and turned her face away. He found out about us. That I was leaving. He said he'd take care of it. I thought he was bluffing." Her voice was hoarse, thin. "I didn't know what he was capable of." Delbert stood abruptly, pacing across the rotting wood floor. Walter. The name meant nothing to him. But the way she said it, the way her whole body reacted, made it clear. Whoever Walter was, he wasn't just someone from her past. He was the reason she vanished. "Is he the baby's father?" Delbert asked, and her silence said everything. He walked back over and knelt again. "Marlene, is he still looking for you?" She nodded once, eyes wide, terrified. "He doesn't know I ran." "Not yet. But if he finds out—" Her words trailed off as another contraction took hold, worse than the last. She screamed through gritted teeth, and Delbert gripped her hand so tightly he thought he might crush it. "It's coming," she gasped. "Delbert, I can't do this alone." "You're not alone," he said fiercely. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He looked around the church, eyes scanning for anything. Towels, water, anything to help. He found an old storage closet behind the altar and ripped it open. Dust spilled out, but inside, by some miracle, were folded cloths, candles, even a half-used bottle of rubbing alcohol. He grabbed what he could and returned to her. She was crying now, not from the pain, but from fear. "He said he'd kill anyone who helped me," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here." But Delbert didn't move. He didn't flinch. Outside, lightning flared again. Inside, Marlene screamed, and this time it was followed by silence, a long, terrible silence that made Delbert's heart stop. The silence was crushing. Delbert leaned over Marlene, eyes wide, breath caught in his throat. Her body was still, too still. For a second, he thought they'd lost everything. But then, a sound, faint and uncertain at first, then clear and piercing, a cry. A baby's cry. Delbert exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Marlene sobbed as the baby wailed, and Delbert gently wrapped the tiny child in one of the clean cloths he'd found, hands shaking with something between awe and fear. "It's a girl," he whispered, voice cracking. Marlene reached for her daughter, her strength barely returning. Her hands trembled as she touched the baby's face. "She's perfect," she breathed. Delbert watched them, a strange heaviness pressing into his chest. He didn't know if it was the weight of what just happened or the feeling that this moment, as beautiful as it was, wouldn't last. Something was off. The storm had quieted a little, but not the feeling inside him. The danger hadn't passed. It was circling. He stood and moved toward the front of the church. The doors creaked in the wind, but nothing was visible through the rain-streaked glass. He listened. Nothing. Then, footsteps. Faint, but deliberate. Gravel crunching outside. Slow. Measured. Delbert's blood turned cold. He turned back to Marlene, whose eyes were wide open now, alert. "Someone's here," he said. Her arms instinctively tightened around the baby. "No," she whispered. "It's too soon. He can't be here already." Delbert moved to the corner where a broken wooden cross leaned against the wall. He pulled it free, heavy, splintered, the best he could do as a weapon. "Get to the back," he said. "Behind the altar. Stay quiet. If I don't come back in 2 minutes, run." She hesitated, eyes pleading, but he didn't let her speak. "Go, Marlene." She clutched the baby to her chest and disappeared into the shadows behind the pulpit. He stood near the doorway, heart hammering in his ears. The footsteps stopped. The rain tapped like fingers on the roof. Then a shadow moved outside the window, tall, deliberate, pacing along the front of the building. Delbert tightened his grip on the makeshift weapon. He didn't know what Walter looked like, but whoever that was, they weren't just passing by. Then the doorknob turned. Not fast, not forced, just slow, like someone testing how loud it might be. Delbert took one step forward, eyes locked on the door, every nerve in his body screaming. The door creaked open an inch, then another. Delbert didn't move, didn't breathe. His grip tightened around the broken wooden beam in his hands, his knuckles white. Rain and wind hissed through the crack as a shadow stretched across the floor. And then a boot. Worn leather. Heavy. Followed by the rest of him. The man stepped into the church with the slow confidence of someone who had no reason to be afraid. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a soaked trench coat. His face was hard, eyes sharp and flat. Empty. The kind of empty that only comes from knowing you've already crossed every line. Delbert didn't wait. "Stop right there," he said, voice low, steady. The man did. His cold eyes landed on Delbert, flicked briefly to the weapon in his hand, then back to his face. He gave a small, almost amused smile. "You're not a preacher," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "But this is quite the place for a reunion." Delbert didn't lower the beam. "Who are you?" he demanded, though deep down, he already knew. The man took another step forward. "Name's Walter," he said. "I'm looking for someone. A woman. About so tall," he held up a hand. "Brown hair, due any day now." Delbert's heart dropped. "She doesn't want to be found," he said. Walter tilted his head. "That's not your choice, friend." The tension in the room thickened, pressing like the air before a lightning strike. "She's safe now," Delbert said. "You need to leave." But Walter just kept smiling, and something in that smile made Delbert's skin crawl. From the back of the church, a soft cry echoed, a baby's cry. Delbert flinched. Walter's smile vanished. "Well," he said, his voice changing, "that didn't take long." He took another step forward, and Delbert raised the beam, ready to swing. "You're not touching her," Delbert warned. "Not her, not the baby." Walter stopped again, his expression darkening. "You think you know what you're protecting? You have no idea what she's done." Delbert's voice shook now, but his eyes stayed locked on the man. "I don't care. She's not yours to take." Walter's lip curled. "She made a deal long ago. You think she just disappeared?" No. She was taken. Because she asked me to make someone else disappear first. The words hung in the air like smoke. Delbert blinked, heart racing. What did you say? Walter smiled again, slowly. Ask her about Jonah. And with that, he took a step back into the shadows, and vanished through the open door, like he'd never been there at all. Delbert stood frozen in the doorway, eyes scanning the empty road beyond the church. Walter had disappeared as suddenly as Ele Havia Surgido, like a nightmare that slips back into the dark before you can catch it. The storm had thinned into a cold drizzle, but the chill in Delbert's bones had nothing to do with the weather. One name now echoed in his mind, louder than the wind: Jonah. He turned slowly and looked back toward the altar, where Marlene was curled up in the shadows, cradling the baby close to her chest. He walked toward her, each step heavy with questions. She didn't look up until he knelt beside her. Her eyes were red, hollowed from exhaustion and fear. "He was here, wasn't he?" she asked. Delbert nodded. "He didn't hurt me," he said. "But he said something. A name." Marlene flinched before he even spoke it. "Jonah," he said quietly. "He told me to ask you about Jonah." She closed her eyes, and a tear slipped down her cheek. The baby stirred, sensing the tension in her mother's body. "Who is he, Marlene?" Delbert asked, his voice softer now. "What happened back then?" For a long time, she said nothing. Only the sound of the rain filled the church. Then, in a broken whisper, she said, "Jonah was my brother." Delbert blinked, surprised. "I didn't know you had a brother." She nodded. "Nobody did. My parents sent him away when we were kids. He was troubled, violent, but I loved him. He was the only one who understood me." Her voice cracked. "When he came back, I thought things would be different." She paused, trembling, the baby gently moving in her arms. But Jonah hadn't changed. He hurt someone. Someone close to me. She looked up at Delbert then, eyes full of a kind of guilt he'd never seen on her face before. "I begged Walter to make him go away. I thought he'd just scare him, send him back to wherever he came from. But Jonah vanished, just like I did." Delbert's heart sank. "You think Walter killed him?" Marlene didn't answer right away. She stared down at the baby, brushing a strand of hair from her tiny forehead. "I don't know," she said. "But after Jonah disappeared, Walter said I owed him. And when I tried to leave, he made me disappear too." Her voice turned cold. "He said if I ever told anyone, he'd find me. And now he has." Delbert reached for her hand. "You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out. I swear." But even as he said it, a new sound reached them, tires rolling over gravel outside. Slow. Deliberate. Someone else had arrived. Delbert moved quickly, standing between Marlene and the church doors as the low rumble of tires rolled closer. Headlights cut through the mist like knives, stopping just outside the building. The engine idled for a few seconds, then shut off. Silence again, too much of it. Marlene clutched the baby tighter, her face pale. "It's him," she whispered. "He's come back." But Delbert wasn't so sure. Walter wouldn't knock. Walter would break in. Footsteps approached the doors, firmer this time, heavier. A shadow passed the stained glass window. Then a sharp knock. Delbert held his breath. Another knock, louder now. Whoever it was, they weren't sneaking. They wanted to be heard. Delbert raised the wooden beam again. "Who is it?" he called. A man's voice came through, older, familiar. "Delbert? You in there?" "It's me, Sheriff Corbin." Relief and dread collided in his chest. He hadn't seen the sheriff in over a year, not since he moved out of town after his divorce. What was he doing here now? Delbert opened the door cautiously. Sheriff Corbin stood in the rain, one hand shielding his eyes, the other on his hip. "Heard a call from a farmer a few miles out," he said. "Saw lights in this place. Figured I'd check." Delbert stepped aside to let him in, heart still racing. Corbin looked around the broken-down church, eyebrows furrowed. Then his eyes landed on Marlene. He froze. "Well, I'll be damned," he said under his breath. "Marlene Tucker? Thought you were dead." Marlene didn't respond. She looked down at the baby, avoiding his gaze. Corbin took off his hat, stepping slowly toward her. "Where've you been all this time?" he asked. Delbert stepped in. "It's not safe for her to talk. There's someone after her, someone dangerous." Corbin raised a brow. "Walter Maddox?" Marlene flinched. "You know him?" she asked. The sheriff sighed. "Knew of him. Used to be a PI. Real low-life. Took on dirty jobs nobody else would touch. Heard rumors, people who crossed him vanished." "He's here," Delbert said. "He came looking for her. He knows she ran." Corbin looked out the window, his eyes sharp now. "Then we don't have much time." He pulled out his radio, but there was only static. Storms still killing the signal. Then he turned to Delbert. "We need to get her and the baby out of here. Somewhere safe. Do you have a place?" Delbert nodded. "There's an old cabin my uncle used to own, deep in the woods. No one knows it's there." Corbin looked to Marlene. "Can you move?" She stood slowly, legs shaky. "Yes. But if we go now—" She paused, looking toward the dark beyond the door. "He'll follow." And in the distance, another set of headlights flickered to life. The wheels of the sheriff's SUV kicked up wet gravel as they sped away from the church. Marlene sat in the back, holding the baby close to her chest, wrapped in layers of cloth and Delbert's old flannel jacket. Delbert rode up front, glancing constantly at the rearview mirror. The other car's headlights had vanished, but that didn't mean they were safe. Not even close. Sheriff Corbin's hands gripped the wheel tight. "This road gets worse the deeper we go," he said. "If he follows, he'll have to slow down too. Might buy us time." Marlene didn't speak. Her mind was racing faster than the tires. The name Jonah still echoed in her ears, as if the storm itself were whispering it. Her brother's memory hung over her like fog, blurry, heavy, suffocating. She looked down at her daughter, sleeping against her chest, tiny fingers curled into her shirt. She'd brought this child into a broken world. A hunted world. And now she was dragging Delbert into it too. They turned off the main road onto a dirt path, barely wide enough for the SUV. Branches slapped at the windows, rain turning to icy mist. Delbert pointed ahead. "It's just past the ridge. You'll see a shed first, then the cabin. No one's been there in years." Sheriff Corbin nodded, his jaw set. "Let's hope that includes Walter." But as they rounded the bend, the faint glow of headlights flickered far behind them, bouncing between trees. "He's following," Delbert said, his voice tight. Corbin didn't answer. He just hit the gas. The SUV skidded around a curve, headlights flashing over the abandoned shed. Just beyond it, hidden by trees and shadow, stood the cabin, old, dark, but still standing. They pulled in fast. Delbert jumped out first, opening the back door. "Let's go." Marlene stepped out, legs still weak, but her grip on the baby strong. Corbin scanned the trees with a flashlight, pistol drawn. Inside. Now. They rushed through the creaking door and bolted it shut behind them. The cabin smelled of dust and cedar, the air thick with years of silence. Delbert found an oil lamp and lit it, casting long shadows across the room. Marlene sat on an old couch, rocking the baby gently. "She doesn't even have a name yet," she whispered. Delbert crouched beside her. Then let's give her one. Something strong. Before Marlene could answer, Corbin walked in from the front room, face pale. He's close, he said. I saw movement in the trees. Then he paused. And there's something else, he added, voice lower. I found tire tracks, 2 different sets. Someone else was already here. The cabin felt like it was holding its breath. Every creak of the old wooden floor sounded louder. Every gust of wind against the windows made them all flinch. Delbert paced near the door, gripping a rusted fireplace poker. Sheriff Corbin stood by the curtained window, flashlight off, pistol in hand. Marlene hadn't moved from the couch. She rocked the baby slowly, but her eyes were distant, unfocused, locked somewhere in a memory she couldn't escape. Delbert turned to Corbin. What do you mean someone else was here? Corbin hesitated. The tire tracks weren't fresh. Not from tonight. But recent. A different tread than Walter's car. Maybe a few days ago. He looked over at Marlene. Is there anyone else who could be looking for you? She shook her head. No one. Unless, she paused, swallowing hard. Unless Walter's not working alone. Delbert felt his stomach drop. You think someone helped him take Jonah? Marlene nodded slowly, her voice breaking. Walter was just the one I saw. But there was always someone else in the background. Watching. Waiting. I never saw his face, only heard them call him the Quiet One. A shiver ran through her. He was the one who told Walter what to do. Corbin frowned. If that's true, we're not just dealing with a psychopath. We're dealing with a plan. One that started years ago. The baby stirred, and Marlene held her closer, whispering, I won't let them take her too. Suddenly, the porch floor groaned. Delbert's head snapped toward the door. A shadow passed over the window. Then another. Corbin motioned for them to stay down. He moved silently to the front of the cabin, crouching beneath the window. The sound of heavy breathing came through the cracks in the wall. Then a voice. Familiar. Come. Walter. You should have stayed gone, Marlene, he said through the door. You had a second chance at life. But now you've dragged others into this. That was a mistake. Delbert stood, fury rising in his chest. You don't get to decide who lives or dies, Walter. This ends here. Walter laughed. Oh, Delbert, you still think this is about you? About her? You don't even know the half of it. A second voice spoke then, low, raspy, colder than anything they'd heard before. Let us in, Marlene. It's time to finish what you started. Marlene gasped, her face drained of color. She knew that voice. And for the first time since she reappeared, she looked truly afraid. The cabin door trembled as fists pounded against it, each blow more violent than the last. Delbert braced his shoulder against it, sweat beading on his forehead. Sheriff Corbin aimed his pistol at the entryway, lips tight, jaw locked. Marlene clutched the baby in a corner, her back against the wall, rocking gently, whispering things only a mother could say in a moment like this. Outside, the voices returned, Walter's smooth venom and the other man's chilling rasp. Let us in, Marlene, or we'll burn it down with all of you inside. Delbert turned toward her. You have to tell me. Who is he? The one with Walter. Marlene looked up, her face pale and full of pain. His name is Jonah, she said, barely breathing the word. He didn't die. Walter didn't kill him. He took him, twisted him, broke him. He became something else. Corbin's eyes widened. Your brother? That's your brother out there. She nodded slowly. I didn't recognize his voice until now. But it's him. I feel it. The door cracked slightly under another blow. Delbert's hands tightened on the poker. "So what do we do?" he asked. Marlene stood, her baby in her arms, and walked toward him with a steadiness that surprised them both. "We don't run," she said. "Not anymore." She kissed her daughter's forehead and placed her into Delbert's arms. "Take her into the cellar. There's a hatch behind the back wall. I remember. Hide her. Hide yourself. No matter what happens." Delbert shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." "You have to," she said, eyes brimming with tears. "This ends with me." She turned to Corbin. "You said it yourself. He's after what I started. Jonah blames me. Walter controls him, but Jonah, he wants to see me suffer." Another slam rattled the door, the hinges threatening to snap. "Then we make a stand together," Delbert said, defiant. But Marlene stepped closer, cupping his face. "You already saved me once, Delbert. Don't let me lose her too." With one final glance, she turned toward the door. Then, silence. The knocking stopped. The voices faded. And when Delbert opened the hatch and lowered the baby into the darkness, he heard the front door creak open. He waited. Minutes passed. No gunshots. No screams. When he finally emerged, the front room was empty. The storm had stopped. Morning light crept through the window. The door swung gently in the wind. Blood smeared on the frame. One set of footprints leaving. One body missing. But in his arms, the baby slept, safe. Marlene was gone. And Delbert knew she had given everything to end the nightmare.